The last diagram is a wireframe diagram. Why is it called wireframe? Wireframe comes originally from designers who needed to showcase 3D model but using a 2D medium, so using line drawings on a computer. And the idea is that the lines, those green lines there, looked a bit like wires, so it was called a wireframe diagram. But for your purposes, the wireframe diagram is going to be simply a mock-up. It's going to look like the screens on your finished app. Your wireframe doesn't need to be functional, but it doesn't need to include all the necessary detail. But in this case, doing a wireframe, doing a mock-up for an app, I would guess that what you're going to produce would actually be quite close to your final prototype. And don't forget, you go on to make a prototype later on. So I would say that the more effort you put into this, the less effort you'll be putting in later on when you do a prototype. And although prototypes and wireframes are different things, for our purposes they come quite close together in meaning. So here's an example that I found on the web. This is Creative Commons, by the way. This is a mock-up of a phone, and it's showing what the color scheme, what the designs of a certain app might appear like. And so this is the sort of thing that you're looking for. My advice to you is to create at least 2 screens. I think one of those screens, it would make sense if it was the booking screen, so you can show Justin what one of his customers will be looking at, one of his students will be looking at when he's making a booking. And the other screen can be something of your choice. You can produce more than 2 if you like, but do at least 2, or else really you aren't giving anyone a fair idea of what it is you're producing. A few things to think about when you're making a wireframe diagram. Make a list of the functions so you know what needs to be included. And of course, one of the choices you've got to make is how many functions you're going to put on each slide of your phone, on each page of your app, because phones are quite small screens, and there's a temptation to try to put everything onto one screen, but it all becomes horrible to use. So it's that balance, it's that sweet spot between being easy to use but actually not having to go through too many screens to achieve your goal. So plan out how many screens you want to use for your app. I recommend using Photoshop to create this mock-up, because then you can go on and actually make the thing functional, or more functional, when it comes to creating later on your prototype. Your design should include everything that you said you were going to do in P2, but don't forget, we're only looking for 2 or 3 or 4 different screens. Don't forget, it needs to be in the shape of a phone. The idea is we can look at it and Justin can think, yeah, okay, I understand what this would look like for my customers. And that's it, that's your wireframe. So 4 diagrams to produce for P3.